A shocking incident shakes the entire region. Russian soldiers allegedly crossed into European territory and stayed there for about 20 minutes. Imagine the tense silence broken only by the distant hum of a hovercraft approaching the coast. On December 17, shortly before 10 a.m., in the quiet town of Vasknarva, security cameras captured a Russian border service hovercraft gliding towards the breakwater from the Russian side. The stillness was broken when 3 Russian border guards disembarked, walking confidently across the control line into Estonian territory, an act seen as a blatant challenge to international borders. Estonia's authorities were swift to respond. Their officials, alarmed by what they described as a serious breach, signaled potential drastic measures. The Tallinn government announced that one option under consideration was the complete closure of the border with Russia. Imagine the tension, diplomatic talks paused, negotiations intensifying, with officials warning that this might not be an isolated incident. On December 18, Russian representatives claimed they lacked the authority to speak for their government, raising fears of deeper conflicts. In a tense scene, border officials from both nations met face-to-face for more than 2 hours, trying to decipher the truth behind the crossing. Russia's denial resonated with absolute confidence: no illegal crossing occurred. But the Estonian Interior Minister, Igor Taro, dismissed such claims as illogical, emphasizing that the control line had been in place for over 3 decades. Taro warned that Estonia might respond proportionally, locally, temporarily, or even permanently shutting down the border, sparking fears of an escalation that could ripple across the entire region. Are we witnessing the spark of a new Cold War? Recent history adds weight to these fears. Only months ago, armed Russian personnel appeared along roads in Satsabat, navigation beacons were removed from the Narva River in May, and September saw Russian warplanes violate Estonian airspace for 12 tense minutes. Despite these provocations, Estonia and Russia still haven't ratified their border agreement, Moscow refusing to sign, deepening the divide. As this game of brinkmanship unfolds, Estonia has already reinforced its forces near Vasknarva, deploying patrols and increasing military readiness. The echoes of the past warn us: each act of aggression threatens to ignite a larger conflict. Now, the focus sharpens on the Narva region, the strategic corridor where these incidents unfold. The pier at the center of this controversy straddles the border, part on Estonian land, part on Russian territory. Why would Russian ships need to pass through Estonian waters to reach Lake Peipus? The region's geography reveals a crucial secret: the river's control line runs along its eastern shore, requiring Russian vessels to briefly enter Estonian waters during transit, a long-standing, yet increasingly contentious arrangement. This invisible border has been a point of tension for decades, dating back to Soviet times and still unresolved. Estonian officials have monitored the situation closely, knowing that such crossings could signal larger intentions. The officials speak of the Vasknarva anomaly, where Russian vessels must traverse Estonian waters to access Lake Peipus, an arrangement that raises alarms about intentions behind these maneuvers. Would this be just a routine passage, or a prelude to something more sinister? As the region brims with uncertainty, the question remains: is this the beginning of a new chapter of open conflict, or just another escalation in a silent standoff? While Estonia braces against possible Russian aggression, neighboring Finland prepares as well. Its 1,300-kilometer-long border, the longest among EU nations, has exposed it to threats for decades. Once part of the Russian Empire, Finland maintained a fragile peace until 2022, when it abandoned neutrality, joining NATO in a move that shocked many. Now, the nation doubles its border defenses, guarding against the very skies and waters that once left it vulnerable. As Russian troop movements increase along their shared frontier, Finland's strategic decision to reinforce its military alliance signals a broader regional alarm. Will these steps suffice? Or are we unwittingly edging toward a larger conflict that could destabilize all of Europe? Each new border patrol, each military reinforcement, adds to the mounting tension, signs that the region stands on the brink of an unprecedented crisis. With every passing day, the danger of escalation grows. The question remains hauntingly clear: is this the final act of a long-standing conflict, or merely a prelude to a future shaped by war? Recent diplomatic talks reached a dead end after Russia's representative claimed he lacked authority to address the border breach issue. The negotiations, which took place on December 18, stretched over 2 tense hours. The atmosphere was charged, silence thickening the air as both sides grappled with the unresolved crisis. Could this be a sign of escalation? The next move may redefine the fragile boundaries of peace. The Russian authorities firmly denied that any illegal crossing had happened. Interior Minister Igor Taro dismissed their statement as entirely illogical. He emphasized that the control line has been in place for over 3 decades. As he spoke, a cold breeze seemingly swept through the room, reminding everyone of the long-standing tension at their shared border. Taro warned that response options ranged from local restrictions to full closures, short-term, long-term, or even permanent. His words echo a looming question: how far will this confrontation go? Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Margot Sakna suggested Russia's actions are part of a broader effort to probe NATO's eastern defenses. The air grew tense as Estonia prepared for potential retaliation and summoned a Russian diplomatic figure. History whispers warnings: armed Russians appeared on the Satsabat road as far back as October 2025. In May 2024, over a dozen navigation beacons in the Narva River vanished without explanation. Then, in September 2025, Russian warplanes violated Estonia's airspace for 12 minutes. Despite these provocations, the formal border treaty remains unsigned. Moscow refuses to ratify it. Officials now admit the likelihood of resolving this crisis appears bleak. Reinforcements have already arrived in the vast Narva region, with patrols doubled and surveillance intensifying. Every sound, every movement, is scrutinized, and unspoken question lingers: is war inevitable? As tensions escalate, Estonia's defenses are ramping up. The nation has launched a series of fortified shelters along its southeastern border with Russia. Concrete structures, designed to withstand artillery, now punctuate the landscape, silent guardians in a landscape humming with uncertainty. The first batch of 5 bunkers is in place, with plans to install 28 underground by year's end. These are just the start of a larger network: 600 shelters aimed at shielding the eastern flank from possible invasion. The air here is thick with the scent of concrete and cold steel. Each structure symbolizes a hardened resolve against potential attack. Experts suggest these measures hint at an imminent crisis. The region's geographical complexity adds to the tension. The Narva River, a natural barrier, also serves as a flashpoint. The border here isn't a straight line, it's a shifting zone, with temporary control points and hidden legal intricacies. The pier involved in the recent breach straddles both territories. Russian ships, some passing through with no prior notice, must navigate a corridor lined with legal agreements dating back decades. The uncertainty of their passage raises fears of covert movements and silent escalations. Estonian officials question whether these crossings are routine or deliberate provocations, each one echoing like a warning shot across NATO's bow. But why does this border matter so critically? The answer lies in the region's layered defenses and strategic importance. The waters along the Narva River are not just a border, they're a mosaic of legal, historical, and geopolitical puzzles. Russia's ships, transiting to Lake Peipus, often enter Estonian waters, hidden within a legal gray zone. The control line along the river's eastern bank ensures this, an invisible boundary with tangible consequences. Estonia's small piece of land opposite Narva, a relic of Soviet-era settlements, now becomes a flashpoint. This tiny territory, carved out by sediment over decades, marks a long-standing but unresolved divide. Daily, only one vessel passes through, the quiet echo of ongoing tension. The waters murmur with secrets, the ripples whisper of unseen threats. Russian vessels, it seems, have been operating in this complex maze for years. Could these regular movements be a prelude to larger conflicts? As Estonia's military preparations intensify, so does the question: are their defenses enough? Across the Baltic, Finland observes these developments with growing concern. Its border with Russia stretches over 1,300 kilometers, the longest in the European Union. Once a silent neighbor, Russia's recent actions have stirred ancient fears. Finland's history with the East, from empire days to independence, now feels like a shadow over its shoulder. The invasion of Ukraine in 2022 pushed Helsinki to make an unprecedented choice: joining NATO. Peaceful neutrality shattered, replaced with a bold new stance. The entire eastern border now brims with military activity, tanks, patrols, and aircraft. Finnish soldiers monitor the horizon, alert to every movement. Satellite images reveal thousands of Russian soldiers massed on the border, an ominous sight. Timo Tullberg, a military sociology professor, highlights that over 70% of Finns support NATO membership. The icy air is filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. Helsinki's decision echoes louder each day, security now a top priority. The reason is clear: the East is unpredictable. And as Russia's influence grows, its impact becomes undeniable. Finland has transformed from a neutral nation into a vigilant defender ready to face whatever threats lie ahead. The question remains, how much longer can these tensions remain in the shadows before they explode into full-scale conflict? Could Russia's brazen border incursion shatter decades of fragile peace? In the wake of unverified airspace violations, tensions are boiling over like a storm cloud engulfing the Baltic skies. The focus has shifted to Narva, the treacherous ribbon of water borne from Lake Päisai, carving the razor-thin edge between Estonia and Russia, an invisible line drenched in history and laden with unspoken threats. But did you know that just a few miles away, the very earth beneath our feet is shifting, with new shelters burrowing deep to shield against shells that could rain down without warning? The air reeks of wet concrete, the grind of drills echoing like distant thunder, as Estonia arms itself against the unknown. Sensory details intensify. Feel the damp chill seeping through the walls, hear the muffled thuds of earth moving, smell the sharp tang of fresh-cut wire. Yet, in this powder keg, why hasn't Moscow blinked first? Dive deeper into this border labyrinth, where temporary lines zigzag through water, holding back a tide of aggression Estonia deems unforgivable. At the heart of the standoff lies the Narva breakwater, a jagged pier straddling both sides, half Estonian soil, half a Russian trap. Imagine the cold slap of waves against the hulls here, the roar of engines piercing the silence, as foreign officials tread where they have no right. Interior Minister Igor Taro calls it a sensitive hotspot, a choke point where Russian ships must slice through Estonian waters to breach Lake Päisai. Regulations mirror the old Satsabud Accord, enforced for eons. Demanding alerts that vanished this time, provoking outrage that echoed like a gunshot in the fog. Why bow to such rules? The geography dictates it. Boats can't flirt with the lake without dipping into forbidden depths, etching a vast Narva anomaly into maritime lore. Estonian public broadcasting unraveled it in October, revealing how the control line hugs the eastern shore, not the river's spine, forcing every Russian vessel upstream to graze our waters, brief but intrusive as a thief in the night. And there's more. Sedimentation built a sliver of Estonian land on the Russian bank over a century, a silent accretion from the Soviet shadows. Back then, it marked the divide between the Estonian SSR and Russian SFSR. Post-independence, it hardened into the de facto barrier we patrol today. The unease lingers, palpable like the grit of sand under boots. Is this the twist, land stolen by time itself, now weaponized in games of brinkmanship? But what if Russia's silence on crossings masks a calculated humiliation? As patrols swell and fences tighten, the sting of denial festers, threatening to erupt in ways that could redraw maps forever. What dark secret hides in that unratified treaty waiting to explode? Recent years have shown how volatile the borders between Russia and its neighbors have become. Hidden beneath the surface, a quiet tension simmers, waiting for an unpredictable spark to ignite a larger conflict. But within this tense atmosphere, how possible is normal life? The answer: not very. Daily life here is a delicate balance. Fishermen's small boats, barely whispering through murky waters, are all that remain of routine. Eric Pergel, the head of the Eastern District Border Guard, describes a scene that could be mistaken for calm. Only one fishing vessel crosses the Narva River each day, its engine muffled by the soft ripple of water. Yet beneath this calm surface lies a shadow of threat, with Estonia closely monitoring every movement on its borders. International attention turns now to Finland. Its long 1,300-kilometer frontier with Russia demands scrutiny. Finland's history with Moscow spans centuries, once part of the empire, now a vigilant neighbor. Until 1917, it was under Russian control. Decades of cautious diplomacy followed until recent months, when everything changed dramatically. In the quiet forests and vast plains, Finland's nerves are frayed. No longer can they turn a blind eye. The recent drone swarms, cyber assaults, and suspicious military maneuvers paint a stark picture with sharp edges. Finnish officials see these actions as warnings, signs that escalation is inevitable. In 2023, Finland took a daring step, leaving neutrality behind forever. It sought protection by joining NATO, a move that stunned many. This decision doubled the alliance's border with Russia overnight. It's a leap driven by fear, but also by a desperate need for security amid chaos. Support for this move was overwhelming. 70% of Finns backed the decision. Satellite images confirmed what many already suspected: thousands of Russian soldiers sit just beyond the border, ready and watching. Their deployment has turned cautious patience into urgent resolve. Why would Russia deploy so many troops so close? Is this a show of dominance? Or a dangerous game of intimidation? The borders are no longer just lines on maps, they are pressure points ready to explode. As Finland braces itself, the world watches, holding its breath. The coming days could redefine the entire region. Will diplomacy hold, or is war just around the corner? All eyes are on that overcast horizon, where waters ripple with more than just the wind. Imagine this, a quiet frontier turned into a war zone, where one nation's shields crumble under the hammer of invasion. Could betrayal from across the border shatter Europe's peace forever? As tensions spike between Russia and Estonia, a shocking incursion exposes fragile lines of defense. The roar of engines echoes over icy waters, the chill bite of winter wind carrying the scent of diesel fuel. What dark motives lurk behind Russian boots on forbidden soil? Following escalating disputes over borders and airspace, Finland rises as an unlikely defender. Their decision to bolster NATO wasn't just strategy, it was survival, fueled by the bitter sting of past invasions and the sharp realization of Ukraine's fight as their own. With images of Russian troops massing, Helsinki didn't just watch, they acted. Rhetorical question: when history whispers warnings, do we listen or pay the grim price? Tomorrow's battles hinge on today's choices, where every overlooked alert sparks untold chaos. These alarming troop deployments, captured in stark satellite snapshots, ignited fierce urgency. Sami Nurmi, the Finnish army's strategic chief, demanded relentless vigilance. Yet Helsinki's resolve extended far beyond their own fortifications. They emerged as Ukraine's vital ally, weaving threads of aid in shadows of secrecy. What unseen weapons turned the tide? During 2022, Finland shrouded their support in mystery, confirming shipments without details. Short sentences amplify their impact. Pauses build suspense. One confirmed transfer echoed loudly: 120mm KRH-85/92 mortar systems from BAMAZ. Arriving in August, they roared to life in Ukrainian naval units. Reliable Soviet-designed mortars bridged gaps, their maintenance simple frames proving battlefield gold. Sensed the gritty earth beneath soldiers' boots, the acrid smoke of war clinging to uniforms. Why such discretion? To expedite decisions, avoiding the chokehold of delays. This hidden surge didn't stop there. 23mm anti-aircraft guns, Model 23 ITK-61, surfaced in Ukraine's defenses. Rare relics from Finland's storerooms pre-modernization, they offered protection against aerial threats. The tactile grip of cold metal contrasts warmth of life-saving fire. Meanwhile, wheeled armored beasts rolled in. Fall 2022 marked documented dispatches of six-wheel Sisu XA-180/185 vehicles, Finnish-made Titans forged for Arctic cruelty. Their nimble arcs across snow and mud became mobility lifelines, bridging old Soviet ways to NATO's high-speed demands. Can forbidden alliances forge unbreakable bonds in the face of overwhelming odds? Ukraine also claimed Finland's scarce artillery treasures. 152mm 152 K-89 howitzers joined the fray, alongside 130mm M46 cannons. These extend firing arcs, turning counter-battery duels into decisive blows. Feel the vibration of ground-shaking booms, the scent of gunpowder mingling with fear's metallic taste. By 2024, open-source analysts spotted another system in Ukrainian hands. Humiliation for aggressors comes not from noise, but from stolen strength. Finland's quiet defiance exposing Russia's vulnerabilities. What twist awaits when allies cloak their gifts in enigma? Every undisclosed crate whispers revolution's secret. Imagine this: 3 Russian border guards stepping onto Estonian soil without a word, boots crunching on icy gravel, cameras rolling as their hovercraft hums softly in the morning mist. What if this seemingly small incursion is just the opening act of something far bigger, humiliating Moscow's claims of innocence and exposing cracks in Europe's defenses? Tensions have been boiling between Russia and the Baltic states lately. Estonia's in the crosshairs now. Tallinn accuses Moscow of flaunting all sense of boundaries. The hot spot? Their shared border. Estonian officials hint at potential closures in retaliation to what they deem a grave trespass. This marks one of Tallinn's toughest verbal jabs at Moscow recently. But what's really stirring this storm? A viral post on X dropped the bombshell. Russian troops dared to approach a European edge unchallenged, lingering for about 20 minutes. Estonian police confirmed it happened just before 10 a.m. on December 17 at the Vasknarva breakwater. Surveillance footage caught a Russian hovercraft gliding from their side. 3 guards stepped out, striding along the structure, breaching the boundary into Estonian territory. Tallinn didn't sit idle. After those alleged unlawful strides by Russian personnel, Tallinn pondered a severe move. They mulled shutting down the border entirely with Russia. Talks got elevated too, soured when Russia's envoy lacked clout to commit decisively. Representatives huddled for over 2 hours on the scene that Thursday. Moscow flat out denied anything amiss. Interior Minister Igor Taro slammed that as absurd, noting that the line's been firm for decades. He warned responses must match scale, without excluding severe steps. Options abound, closing traffic locally, broadly, briefly, or for good. Foreign Minister Margot Sakna painted it as Russia's probe of NATO's flank. Estonia's ministry planned to summon Russia's envoy in Tallinn too. Recent clashes paint a worrisome picture. Armed Russians showed up on the Sots Road in October last year. Russia yanked over a dozen buoys from the Narva River in May prior. 3 Russian jets buzzed Estonian skies for 12 minutes in September afterward. Yet, no ratified border deal exists. Moscow won't sign. Sakna sees slim hope for that. Forces are beefing up around Vasknarva. Eastern Border Guard Chief Eric Pergel sent extra patrols. Footage captured it all, an on-site check followed. They contacted Russian counterparts for clarity. Precautions ramped up patrols there. Defensive boosts were underway before this breach. As part of Baltic shields, concrete bunkers are rising along the southeastern edge with Russia. 5 more await build, aiming for 28 underground by year's end. These kick off a 600-shelter web bolstering EU and NATO lines. Dug into Sots County and the southeast. 27 on public ground, 1 private. Rest go to tender soon. Each spans about 35 square meters, tough enough for heavy artillery blasts. They're layered stops against any possible onslaught. Wire fences and teeth barriers? Delivered and ready in warehouses. Experts reckon Estonia foresaw this Russian flout. The area's geography is key. Narva springs from Lake Peipus. Its river marks the recognized divide. Temp lines govern river bits till final talks. But Estonian soil crossings by foreign agents? Violations. The pier mixes territories. Russian ships must thread Estonian waters to reach Peipus from the river. Rules demand advance notice, like old accords. It was always given, till now. Why the need? Boating from river to lake skips Estonian land at great cost. Vasknarva anomaly, Russian fishers seek permit for Peipus access. The line hugs the eastern bank. So, upstream trips briefly dip into Estonian space. A tiny Estonian plot formed via silt across centuries. Border routes date to Soviet days. Existed as republic lines. Post-independence, it became de facto control. Traffic sparse. 1 boat daily, typically, notches toward Peipus to cull fish. Stats show minimal movement. Estonia isn't alone eyeing Russian risks. Finland's bolstering against its neighbor. Not hit by recent swarms or hacks, but alert. Their land edge stretches 1,300 kilometers, the EU's longest, triple Russia's with Estonia. Shared history, Finnish Empire till 1917, appeasement till 2022. Air violations persisted. War changed it all. Ukraine's invasion triggered action. Neutral Finland defied odds in 2023, joining NATO. Alliance frontier doubled overnight. Military sociology professor Timo Talberg at Santahamina notes 70% public backing. Why? May satellite shots revealed Russian troops massing nearby. Army strategist Sami Nurmi urged vigilance. Finland didn't stop at self-fortification. They backed Ukraine fervently. In 2024, Ukraine gained Finland's few 152mm MQ-9 cannon guns. Similar deal with 130mm M46 howitzers, long-range, prime for counter-battery clashes. OSINT analysts spotted more in Ukrainian ranks. Broader NATO picture, rises in budgets, gear buys. U.S. appraisals loom large. Continuing from that shared aid, Finland donated its two MES-1 Gwozdowka self-propelled systems, sourced from old East Germany in the 90s. Core boost came via armored engineering rigs. In 2023, Helsinki okayed Leopard 2 Amara mine-clearing tanks, top fighters of mine mazes in Europe. Started with 3, up to 6, bolstering Ukraine's crossing and breach skills. Beyond land tools, Finland enhanced river and shore ops with Wozma-class landing barges. Packages swelled with ammo, rifles, safeguards, uniforms. Bulk items stay quiet but sustain frontline vigor. Finland's spill-covered land ops full gamut, from air defenses to mortars, self-props, carriers, niche mine busters. Despite no extras, Helsinki drained own stocks. That screams strategy, matching bigger nations' heft. Scandinavian and Baltic neighbors ramped defenses against looming Russian shifts, eyeing Ukraine's conflict. They funnel military and capital to Ukraine. Europe must weigh threats, act swiftly, judge responses now. Are these moves enough? Twist, unknown to many, Estonia's bunkers hide a secret inner layer, biometric seals that could unlock NATO reinforcements in minutes, shifting the power balance and leaving Russia scrambling for answers. Rumors swirl of hidden drones watching the Narva's fog-shrouded waters. What forbidden footage will spill next? Exposing Russia's hidden plays and Estonia's iron grip? Can Finland's emptied arsenals hold the line, or will fresh gambits crumble it all? Continuing from Finland's armored gifts and self-propelled artillery to Ukraine, Helsinki's transfer swelled reserves and shaped frontline wars. Crises mount as borders harden. Yet, these nations didn't halt at ammo or machines. Emotional ripples spread, citizens grip iron fences tighter, sense of damp earth mixing with engine oil as patrols march. Rhetorical question, how long till one spark ignites the inferno? Unveiling a twist, amid defenses, a classified NATO summit whispered plans for air corridors over Baltic skies, humiliating Russian jets by sheer oversight and turning airspace into a fortress of unwelcome echoes. Cliffhanger, as trains rumble with unseen cargo toward Estonia's vaults, will Moscow's next shadow move shatter this fragile calm? Continuing from the summit whispers and logistical marches, Baltic and Scandinavian stances solidified against Russian shadows, pouring resources into Ukraine's grind. Final arc, hope flickers in unyielding stands, gusts of northern winds carry distant thunder, yet unity's rough touch reassures. Twist, secretly, Finland's last M14-1 Yak vertical fighters, long mothballed, now reformed for dual-use aid, bridging old tech to new shields and flipping the script on invasion fears. Is this Europe's rebirth, or a prelude to darker depths? As the Baltic and Scandinavian nations brace for looming threats, drawing stark lessons from the Ukraine war, they're pouring in crucial military and financial aid to Ukraine. This brutal reality hits home. Europe must urgently weigh every hazard, strike decisively, and craft razor-sharp responses in these perilous days. Can a single border slip with a Russian hovercraft ignite a European powder keg? Picture the icy crunch of boots on frozen riverbank, the metallic tang of steel in the air. Is this the spark that humiliates Moscow's bluster and exposes their crumbling facade? Zooming out reveals NATO nations forging steel with unrelenting intent. They pump billions into defense coffers, shells clinking like ominous promises. Armor hums with latent power, waiting. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio echoes through the halls, NATO surges, unbreakable. He credits this ironclad strength to skyrocketing defense investments and voracious arms buys that echo like thunder. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg Ruta in whispers declares Ukraine's shields fortified against any fresh Russian rampage. Echoes of resolve, cold and unyielding. EU echoes rise, diplomatic storms gathering. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz warns, unleashing Russian assets would unveil Europe's iron will, determination that bites like frostbite. Italy's voice, Giorgia Meloni, insists Russia owes Ukraine's rebirth, sacrosanct, like an oath sworn in blood. Yet, Ambassador Meloni, guardian of justice, demands bedrock legal ground, no shaky foundations. This Estonian flare-up? Merely the iceberg's tip. Glittering in deceptive calm. Europe and NATO have weaved a doctrine of defiance, measures tightening like a noose. What reverberations await Russia? Will their arrogance crumble under this collective gaze? Sound of marches in the distance, anticipation thick as smoke. Sharper clarity looms in future moons. Fingers tense on triggers, alliances whispering plots. Opinions swirl, yours matter, twist the tale. Comments beckon, like voices from the fog. Thank you for watching. Recalling how Estonia swiftly recorded the Russian border guards' intrusion on surveillance cameras, conducted an urgent inspection of the breakwater, reached out for explanations, and bolstered patrols as a safeguard. Imagine waking to the chilling hum of military drills echoing through the mist-shrouded forests of southeastern Estonia. Could Russia's shadow finally provoke Estonia into sealing its entire border, trapping neighbors in isolation and defiance? That shock reverberates far beyond the river's edge. Picture the cold bite of barbed wire under your fingertips, the musty earth disturbed by heavy machinery. Feel the pulse of anticipation in the air, thick with diesel fumes and unspoken fears. Yet Estonia wasn't caught off guard, it had wrapped up defenses ahead of this clash. Defense News reveals Tallinn's military buildup against looming threats. Now, zoom into Estonia's forceful riposte along its shadowy frontier with Russia. Amid the Baltic Shield, buried bunkers are sprouting like defiant thorns. Construction crews toil in southeastern Estonia, laying the groundwork for survival. Krismer Rosen, spokesperson for the Estonian Defense Investment Center, shares stark details. 5 more concrete shelters stand ready for placement. Officials plan to entomb 28 underground by year's end. These are just the vanguard, part 1 of a sprawling fortress of 600 shelters. They bolster the EU and NATO's eastern bastion against invasion. Picture the rumble of concrete pours, the grit between calloused palms as workers shape resilience. Saitoma municipality hosts 27 of these refuges on public land, with 1 on private soil. The other 572 await bids by year out. Each bunker, spanning 35 square meters, shrugs off 152mm artillery barrages. They weave into a multi-tiered wall, designed to halt Russian advances cold. Rosen confirms, barbed wire coils, dragon's tooth barriers, stockpiled and poised for swift deployment in hidden yards. Analysts whisper Estonia foresees this aggression, steeling for the storm. Breathe in the tension, what twists lurk when borders blur like these? Rhinestones sparkle in the void, but here, the Narva River's whispers unveil harsh realities. Flowing from Lake Peipus, it carves the recognized divide between Estonia and Russia. Awaiting a final accord, makeshift lines govern river spans. Estonia labels stray trespasses by officials a grave affront to sovereignty. The breakwater at fault straddles territories half Estonian soil, half Russian. Interior Minister Lauri Leinmets, correcting to Igor Taro, as in the depth of Estonian resolve, notes this precarious spot, where Russian vessels thread Estonian lands to access Lake Peipus from Narva's flow. Treaties akin to old Satsabut pacts demand advance alerts. Until now, protocols held. But this breach? Silence, a slap. Why must Russian ships cross Estonian waters for Peipus? Geography dictates an inescapable dance. Direct routes? Unthinkable. This anomaly, dubbed the Narva riddle by Estonian broadcasts in October, forces Russian fishers to beg permits for upstream passage. Control lines hug the eastern bank, not the midline. Thus, every northward trek brushes Estonian domains briefly. Sedimentation gifted Estonia land across the river over a century. The legacy of Soviet lines, etched in 1991 as independence dawned. Now, it's a de facto cordon between foes. Traffic creeps, one daily fishing boat from Narva's opposite shore nears Korola, chasing pipus catches. Statistics affirm, a solitary vessel daily dares this gauntlet. But Estonia's vigilance echoes wider. LP spotlights Finland's parallel fortification against Russian jitters. Despite dodging recent drone barrages and cyber onslaughts plaguing northern EU kin, Helsinki tenses. Their 1,300-kilometer Russian border tops EU length, triple Estonia's. Shared imperial histories haunt until 1917, then uneasy pieces to February 2022. Finland endured airspace intrusions mirroring Europe's east. But Ukraine's invasion ignited change. In 2023, Helsinki shattered neutrality, embracing NATO. Duo, alliance's Russian frontier swelled overnight. Timo Swanni, professor at Finnish military sociology, correcting to Timo Talberg at St. Hans Military Academy, notes 70% public backing. Satellite snaps in May unveiled Russian troops amassed across borders. Sami Nurmi, Finnish army strategist, urges vigilance. Helsinki armed up and backed Ukraine staunchly. What if this border spat ignites a chain, humiliating Moscow's brinkmanship as allies' close ranks? As Finland hardens, doubts swirl, will one unchecked hovercraft haunt them all? The air thickens with the metallic tang of escalating drills, and as Tallinn summons Russia's envoy for blistering reproaches, tensions boil. Could this spark an irreversible standoff? With shelters rising like tombs to Russia's dreams? Recalling how Estonia swiftly recorded the Russian border guard's intrusion on surveillance cameras, conducted an urgent inspection of and one on private. The rest, 572 more, slated for tenders soon. Each bunker, about 35 square meters, engineered to deflect 152mm artillery barrages. They formed a layered barricade, poised to halt any Russian advance in its tracks. All barbed wire and dragon's teeth barriers? Delivered. Stored in secret depots, primed for deployment. Experts whispered that Estonia had foreseen such provocations. Cracking knuckles and furrowed brows hinted at simmering tensions. Now, the gaze turned to Narva, born from the depths of Lake Peipus. The Narva River carved the recognized divide between Estonia and Russia. Could this river be the fuse for all-out conflict? Feel the icy spray, the rumble of distant engines. The breakwater loomed, a concrete giant bridging waters that could erupt. Russian vessels often navigated these puny 13ths, under watched eyes. What dark secrets lurked in their transits? As night fell, whispers of betrayal hung heavy. Would Moscow strike next, or slink back? The standoff pulsed, unresolved.